It's 2 foot off the corner.
Okay.
So if you have a gutter issue, and that's why your house is cracked on the corner, we put a screw 2 foot on each side, and if it just goes up to 4 feet, that's enough.
But you don't put members in between these screws, no? You don't put concrete
No,
in
we
between?
put this big steel bracket, it's about 90 pounds, and we bolt it to that footer.
Okay.
Permanently attached to that footer.
Okay.
And then we put the screw in the ground, and that screw, we put a T-handle on top of it, and put a hydraulic jack. We can put 100,000 pounds pressure if we need to jack the house right back up.
So I've got a picture of a crawl space right here with a footer around it. Would you mind pointing out, like, maybe either the way that you'd see things move or what you could expect,
Yeah.
and things that homeowners could possibly, and business owners for that matter, could
Right.
possibly, and I assume the advice on sand is gonna be the same comment you'd have for a business owner building a business type building. It's gonna be more or less the same concept.
Oh, yeah, and most of the time commercial is a slab. But in this particular situation, this is actually a poured concrete foundation. You can tell because it's got the dots on it and it's big blocks. On those, you only see cracks typically going straight down, okay?
All right.
But.
Why is that?
Well, because it's a solid concrete, all right? And where if you have a block foundation, it's built in blocks, that's when you start seeing the stair step. So if you have a crack right here on this foundation, on the solid foundation, it's typically going straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you have a crack on a foundation that's got block in it, you'll see a stair step a lot of times,
Right.
or you'll
Yeah.
see it straight up. Okay.
Yeah.
The stair step is typically because the footer broke a little bit, and it's starting to, the whole back house is starting to fall. And wherever there's one crack, there's always a second. Always. If somebody says, "Well, I only got one crack," they're not looking good enough. All right. So what happens is you get one, if it starts falling, and then that's why those screws are so great about pushing it back up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing, if you
Those are
have,
gonna be friction, I guess, for lack of a better word. You don't need to hit rock with those screws, as long as they get on far enough, the friction that they're gonna hold is gonna
Yeah.
hold that screw.
you have to have certain amount of pressure.
Parameters you'll look for, yeah.
So if it's a solid concrete foundation, it's gonna take more pressure. If it's a block foundation with 1 story, it's gonna take a little less pressure. If it's a 2 story, it's gonna take more pressure. So it's all based engineer wise.
Evidence that a customer's gonna be looking at, needless to say, you're gonna see floor shift, you're gonna see the
Sheetrock.
band, yeah, you're gonna see the band, that's in
Right.
the crawl space, folks don't like to go there, but you're gonna look at
Right.
sheetrock, you're gonna look at concrete counters having a little bit of movement.
Broken window, door won't open. You know, there's many, those are the common house, that's what the homeowner says, "Hey, I got this, my door's not opening, hey, my window won't open anymore, hey, I've got a crack in my brick." You know, that's the things I see. Now, the other thing about the foundation issue is you don't always have to use those screws. That's the most, those, even though they're a lot less expensive than the way I used to do it. I used to have to jack the house up, tear up the whole foundation, put a 4 foot floating footer in it, and then put the foundation back.
You
Well,
jacked that house up, didn't you?
I did, I jacked the house right up. But now, we put the screws in, so it's a whole lot less expensive and a lot more efficient. However, if you got a crawl space that's got that
Helical screw, right?
helical screw, helical piles,
Okay.
but if you got a crawl space and it's got some cracks in it, but they're hairline, they're not really big, about 1/8 inch or so, you can actually use tape. We can tape it.
Really?
Yes, not duct tape.
Like a fiberglass type tape?
It's
or
a carbon
fiber-
tape.
Carbon
Carbon
fiber
tape.
tape?
They
Okay.
have carbon tape, they have carbon Kevlar tape.
Okay.
This stuff is stronger than steel once it's on.
Does it actually work? I've heard about this
Yeah.
product.
You take your block and you can put this on top of it, and you can
Okay.
literally put your truck across it. It will not break. It will not come apart.
Okay.
Even if it's flat, it won't come
Okay.
apart. They use it in parking garages actually. With concrete
Okay.
cracks in parking garages. I mean, they're putting, that's a lot.
Who should a prospect or a customer's having this issue that may want to look at that solution? Who should they call? Is that an Instadrop
Oh, yeah.
solution?
Yeah, they
Okay.
give us a call and we'll come out and evaluate it. And with the carbon tape, you know, if you have a vertical, you know, a horizontal crack in the
Mhm.
foundation, which means it's doing this,
Mhm.
right?
Which one is it? This one or?
Well, actually, it's a straight wall and it's bending in.
Okay.
So the wall's actually coming into you
Okay.
because the hydrostatic pressure on the ground is pushing against it.
You want to know what engineers call it?
What do they call it?
Moments of inertia. Moments of inertia.
I call them moments of nervousness.
Making
Yeah.
me nervous just trying to hear all
I
that.
tell you. So if it's an inch and a half or so, inch and a half or less, a bend,
Mhm.
we put that tape on there and it'll never move. We have pins that go in the bottom and drill into the bottom of the foundation. We epoxy that U-shaped pin in. That
Okay.
holds it into the ground, and then we bolt it to your to your seal plate up here,
Okay.
or into a joist. But if it goes in a joist, you have to beef it up. But if it goes in a seal plate, you re-seal plate, you just bolt it right in the seal plate, and it doesn't matter, it's not going to move.
You ever suggest jacking houses up anymore, lifting up the levels and getting that thing jacked up anymore? Or is that kind of a way of the past?
Well, the only time we jack up now is if we need to replace something. Like sometimes these walls are so bad. If you've got vertical cracks, horizontal cracks, and everything, sometimes we got to jack the house up and just replace the wall. There's no way around it.
Gotcha.
All right,
Helical
I've
free is
done-
not acceptable
We did probably,
solution there.
no, we've done
Do you
5,
see
6
guys
times
that
that.
see the real need and then see something like a helical screw being, say, low hanging fruit that they can go out and sell, maybe somebody that was just hired, and seeing that somebody trying to fit a need where it doesn't necessarily belong, and getting a bad job,
All
so
the
to
time.
speak.
All the time, and you should always have, you should always get more than one opinion, you should always get at least 3 companies coming out there. Whether it's my company or not, don't trust just me, get 2 other companies out there, and then call, and then get in a collaboration and figure out who's talking about the same
Would one of
business.
those opinions start maybe here, where a customer can kind of automate their education process, produce some evidence, and then start to because I mean, that's what you're really looking for from the opinion is
Right,
an education process for your customer,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Glad these guys tuned in on Inspected so that you guys can start your inspection process on this. Want to talk to you a little bit about basically the earth around the foundation, and I know you'd mentioned that there's some typical things to see, and then we'll wrap it up and let our customers go.
Sounds great.
So you got red clay, silt, shell, and
Yes,
rock.
yes.
Is
So-
that a typical thing to see those layers?
Yes. So when you're digging a footer, when you're digging a foundation, I built it for years. When you're doing a foundation, you're relying on the guy on the backhoe, the track hoe to feel how tight it is. The
yeah.
dig it is. and
Oh, to feel
it.
how tight.
Yeah,
Okay.
because when you're digging, you can tell. All right, do we need to take a break?
I mean, we're at 11 minutes.
That's okay. Just let it keep rolling.
Okay, sorry. When you're digging that foundation out with that, you know, the track hoe guy's feeling how tight it is. All right, and then you
And discovering what's under there, for
right.
that matter, too.
But a lot of times you take a probe. If you're doing it right, you take a probe. You use a 4-foot probe. It's got a sharp end, and you push it down and see how far it's going down, or take a piece of rebar, whichever way you want.
Mhm.
The problem is here's the problem. The problem is you'll have different layers of soil, so you may have 2 foot of good red clay, or typically you got topsoil about a foot or 2. Then you hit red clay about 2 or 3 feet deep, and then all of a sudden what they don't see is the silt underneath that. 3 or 4 feet deep, and it's
Yeah.
a good foot deep. Or it may have an underground creek going through it or something like that. So you got a lot of wash. So then they build the house, and then all of a sudden, a year later, 6 months later,
They're calling you.
it starts breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're mentioning, just expect separate levels for each possible soil sample.
Yeah,
From a geotech type standpoint, so
Yeah.
expect separate levels for that.
If you're building an expensive house on the lake, you better have a might as well spend extra money and make
Get
sure.
a geotechnical engineer out there to inspect. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in with Foundations here at Inspected. Kevin, thanks for coming in and moonlighting again for Jason Dillon.
Appreciate it.
Tune back in for our next shoot on mold and fungus.